Every kid wants to be, or maybe a villain. Nice enough to you. But every once in a while, there's some goofy
job
being
is to
self-absorb in their own power. So what's cool and what? This is the story. One such individual. It all starts the introduction of a gorge. Your name's Akane. 3 years. Oh, I have one. Wow. That's right. And now he's super rich and important. You see, your pony is an actress on top of me. As you can imagine, everyone loves. Time for soda. Boys to do anything for. She seems beautiful both in, out. See you again. Worshipper. His name. Again now and to the moment. And to everyone including. It doesn't even know her name, despite the fact that she sits right next to him in class. Starts putting in her head, friend, be brave. Okay, so back to. And why she tries so hard to make you believe. It's because of me trying to give them the heaven back when she showed this industry. She was just a middle school girl at that time, unfortunately, a stalker of the future, and then took her place. He was going to force himself upon her, unfortunately, she would say, but yeah, PTSD is a thing. It messed with her psyche so much that she ended up. The Belle name is a persona of a perfect girl, so that everyone likes her being a teacher, a student, or anyone else. Bill has paid for the drivers. Still not here to pick her up, but please, but to walk on. But the problem is that this gives her bad vibes, because she's literally never walked alone. That incident in middle school, besides what you doesn't know, was that her driver was being death by some local gangsters. They were waiting for her. Of course, my gender is an empty street. Use a handkerchief to knock her out, and then take her to an empty warehouse. But just this subconsciousness is fading away. She notices a person standing in the distance. It's together, and I kind of then wakes up in a warehouse scared and used. The gangsters want money from her parents, but one of them tries to have his flame with her. This gives our girl aches. Watch Knights of the Stonker incident. I can play the picture finds her. But right then, that very moment, someone breaks into the warehouse, the glass ceiling, and introduce himself as the stylish Rumpian Slayer. He violates this man face. Yeah, the guy is stepping and I'm like the garbage here. Just taking out the other guy's pretty strong. Ruthless play. Strong. He's an ex-military officer. And even more than that, he is a king for violence. Enjoy set, but this meant nothing. In front of the stylish Russians, the Slayer does seem so bad that he cures the man's fetish for violence. See, boom, the officer can physically go on any longer. This Slayer doesn't stop. The very structure of the officer's face using crowbars. I would not recommend watching with kids around. A new economy is free. The Russian Slayer tells her to be careful. And that makes all is well that ends well, because the counties use their power to neatly cover everything up. Of course, she hasn't forgotten about the Russians, who he is, and the next day of school begin. Now if this was your usual psychological trauma type of venom, maybe this would have been the start of yet another complicated relationship. But it's not. It's a sweet East again. And everyone forgets about him. Good, because now I miss wait. The fantasy went on the easy kind express. This is the point of the story, where we get more context about Piano. He's seen for as long as he can remember. He gonna wanted to be a secret hero. Honestly, a lot of kids do, but Waters eventually bind to. He never did. At school he played the role of the background characters. But during the night, he was a menace. One for Browntown and 9 living gangs, one after another. But that was it. Yeah, you inserted the stupid amount of effort into learning rewards and various other survival skills. The bad can kick some local gang ass, but that'll be his limit. Fight armed man. And even if he somehow does manage to win, it can be squash. That's right. Human. But after getting killed by Shark, began to find himself in the arms of a beautiful no ball, my head beating you. Again now, time continues to pass. A city graduate begins to get accustomed to this new wow. It is signs to keep his past life and doesn't even like someone crazy. Martial arts and other physical tricks. You learn back when you use the hand bike again. Yes, was an older sister. Her name is Claire, and unlike him. Sure, this thing I don't know this. By every I get it. Work ethic. Good. Just like that. Now believe it or not, this man actually continues his nighttime routine. Even after that, he still goes out and hunts bandits for one. He finds an ugly cage creature. It's obvious that the creature is under some spell. Sid tries a bunch of things and actually succeeds in removing the curse from this unpleasant creature. You can probably imagine my surprise when it turns blonde elf. It appears that she has a memory loss though. Since this is the perfect chance to make her his subordinate. He starts telling me the story of some ancient heroes who fought against. He affirms that she's a descendant of those heroes and now the demons. Alright. She pulls this thread in there, but it was something answer. Her name is Alpha, and just like that, the two of them kickstart a secret organization called the Shadow Garden. And that is to stop the demon from resurrecting the giant balls. Sieg was enjoying this a little too much. 3 years passed behind the blink of the night, and it's about time for Sid's brilliant sister complete the academy. As they would happen, she disappears. Our brother, she's abducted by someone. Give this. Shows up. She has recruited a few more girls in the past 3 years and formed a team called 7. They immediately commands the search find. Sid's sister was sure that it was the cult of the demons who kidnapped her. The complete believes that Claire is a descendant of the heroes, so their plan is to use her body to revive the great time bullets. Alpha and the others are telling the truth. As crazy as it may seem, that story that said, "Hold that, but nothing," is the truth. The cult is real. It isn't Deep trying to revive the Polos. And yes, it was them who kidnapped his sister. However, she just thinks that these girls are some more together with them. He attacks their hideout garden and feeds and gets rid of them. The rockets allows Clerk to escape as well. She does. She has no idea that it was her brother's savior. But at least she made it back home. Following this, Clear leaves for the academy. Sick is excited to eventually leave. But little things. 2 more years before he's 15 and old enough to enter the academy. Sadly, Malpa then reveals that the girls will have to leave so that they can expand their operations. Considering how the cult of this is a global organization, Sid still thinks it's not real. He also wonders if the girls realized that it was all just the story he came up with. This makes him wonder if they're now using the organization as an example. He used to part ways. It bids them farewell. Sid turns 15 and is finally on his way to enter. You guys, if you almost ever reach when making friends. But here's where it takes a sharp turn. Like every school ever, there's always one popular girl that never forget has a crush on. But she just is Alexia and royal family. Okay, so what happens is Sid doesn't do well on the test. His friends go tell him to ask Alexia. He's gonna get rejected, I guess, without saying, but it still sounds like a fun little babe. Sid humors them. It better walks up toward them, and that's his love. And the most ordinary White House. There's literally no spark of authenticity whatsoever. The reason since it did this is because he wants to continue playing a background character, but somehow the stars align, and the sun, because she accepts his confession. Looks like she'd been waiting. When they're alone, she shares her story. She's the fiancé of the royal fencing instructor. In many ways, her fiancé is high up in social hierarchy. He's an elite. And if one is thinking logically, he shouldn't have a reason to not be with However, morning man, not even close. The guy acts to perfect look. Come on. And so she wanted to be her boyfriend for the time being. It's for the sake of getting away from her fiancé. It realizes that it'll be more trouble than it's worth. Is like the most popular, ruthless girl in the class. Declined, but when she offers him some money, our boy turns into her little puppy dog. That's right. Mommy is everything, anything. Definitely needs someone to run his secret intelligence organization. This boy Bard likes you. And Sid starts spending time together during their sword training. When she reveals how she's not very good at, we sure said that she is good. She states that her sister told her the same thing. Something about what Sid said pissed her off. She left for the day and didn't return. Looks like she went missing. Because the next thing he knows, Sid gets arrested. The last person went there before she disappeared. But Sid doesn't have anything to do with her disappearance. And actuality, she was taken. I guess it be called. The next morning, we see some mad scientists having a field day, sucking her blood. He believes that her blood has some useful demonic DNA, and so is trying to confirm his theory. Sid, on the other hand, is getting tortured by the academic knights. They're being as aggressive as possible. Look, try to make me spill the beans. And yes, they're enjoying it as well. Because you torture. The full torture. Fortress supposed to hurt. Societ acts like he's hurting, but little they know. This level of pain is nothing to happen. I'm sorry to develop to new level of pain tolerance. After about 5 days, like his older sister, Princess Iris orders them to release together. Following, Miss Alpha shows up in his room with some. She shares the progress their organization has made. Actively observing cold how this is relevant to like his parents. And Sid's glad that Alpha is still playing with their little story. There was no time to waste though. They had to go save Alexa, and Alpha prepares a group of 114 soldiers. And so the rescue operation commences. On their way, Sid finds those knights who enjoy torturing him and so he kills them. The remorse are killed whatsoever. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our noble protagonist going back to the somewhere like she is locked up then. Jackson likes his blood when you girl. It doesn't go as planned because the mutant transforms into a savage scientist. Alexia sees this as her chance to escape, but ends up coming across her fiancé. What first moment that means the guy that gave the lunch to the cult was nothing and other than her fiancé was to become a member of the Knights of the Round, and likes his blood seems to be the price. Without thinking, Alexia attacks him by considering what she had to win the war because of the mad scientist, too exhausted to do anything. Lucky for her, a man appears. The shadows heads the shadow, or at least that's what's sitting. This isn't so bad. The fiancé couldn't help but realize the one who's been imposing them all this time. The shadow is this man. He goes on a reveal. The most important members of the cult. Very soon he'll become the 12th C to the Brown. Meanwhile, the mutant monster girls and chaos and have a city. Princess Iris confronts her, but no matter how hard she tries to attack or defeat the monster, the girl just keeps regenerating. Alpha soon shows up and introduces herself as a member of Shadow. Meet the monster girl from her suffering by helping her back to her human self and the going back to cities, overpowering the fiancé using his hackable sword skills. I like she hasn't quite realized, but still she's impressed by his sword skills. As the last resort, the pen taken to stronger but Sigis nukes amount of existence along with surroundings. Bedroom. When everything goes back to normal, Lexi has acquired a new fountain inspiration to master her own sword style. This is the wake of seeing the shadow nukes, the living daylights of her fiancé. She also recalls how she complemented her sword style. Purple Jim. He declines but then gets punished for it. I like ya. She goes hardcore leaps behind. That's what she was punishing, said. As to the Shadow Guard, and they were things up how powerful Shadow was in this recent incident, but their attention soon shifts when they realize how another group is committing crimes. A Shadow Garden. Princess Iris, on the other hand, is curious about both the cult Diablos and the Darling. Of course she is. Her sister's fiancé turned out to be a member of the Hold the Wrong. She forms an investigation team. Then there said, he survived and likes Yusong's spot, is walking away covered in blood, across a pink-hair cutie named Sherry. Just like brilliant mind in the kingdom. She's the last. But Iris, if she can decide. First strange artifact they found that belongs the cold. Send me just to friends. Hands are bio and skill, by the way, and the three of them go to a place to get some chocolate which going to use to get girls. A flawless plan. I say so myself. No, but Sin turns out that the one who runs Dory's Gemma. A girl from the Shadow 7 squad. She's running into secret city is obviously impressed, and upon camera's dedication to play along. But does she know that this is just one of these stores? He had stores in every city around the world, and it's quite literally among the wealthiest people alive. No kidding. Gemma introduces Sid. Knew she's Gamma's personal assistant. Sid appreciates the masked Gemma for 3 cheap chocolates. Of course she gives them the most expensive ones. Said being said, he laughs with Gamma and sneakily steals a silver coin. Then Master on the way sees them in the face, notices that it's Alpha fighting a bunch of vicious people. I needed to shake office to friends before intervening, so he just sells the music. Take the poop. He means to it right away. To the mother stand wars coming from the applause manhood and affirmed that no matter what I'll never forget about him. I know you save some lives. Yeah, by killing the ones who are overpowering. He takes one of them as hostages to interrogate them. He then has a conversation with Alexia where she explains the fake Shadow Garden I was in, using their name. Alexia reassures said that the real Shadow 7 has done nothing wrong. Later Sid's friends use the chocolates to get girls. Still gets ranked by the girl's fiancé. How is Slable the stalker and then arrested? Sid also wonders if he should give the chocolate. Accidentally comes across here and casually gets it to her. Well, Sherry Sodom, the father, is the vice principal. It breaks the news to a silly daughter that the chocolates are probably a love confession, and then she should give Sid an answer. Moving on, you would. The person she interrogated was a brainwashed orphan. The cult uses drugs and magic to turn such people and different soldiers. Is it not the one named Rex who's been lurking around the city? Someone should start talking about the sword tournament that's about to happen at this academy. And House friends see this as an opportunity to impress girls. Newt takes his words out of context. The mistakenly deduces that it is going to deal with Rags. The sword fighting festival takes place and ends up fighting Princess Rose. These student council president, he wasn't gonna give himself away, which is why needs pretend to get injured several times until finally the referee declares his loss. The princess is the kind of impressed with the seal. Then there's Sherry. He's been overthinking the Changbo play and ends up telling Sid that they should start by being friends. But believe me as I say this, it doesn't even remember her name. Then I'll also ask just what her relationship is with Sid. Alexia states that their relationship was fake. Well, it was. Since it declined, would she change? And you only wanted to be his girlfriend. Jerry rejoices. Well, Lexi is upset to see another girl showing so much interest. Is someone who's supposed to be your boyfriend. 5 days later, when Sid shows up at school, Princess Rose Oriana tells about the vacancy of a student council, but the tension is swayed when someone puts a barrier around their school. He's the only one who notices and appears. Magic. Then some sketchy men show up in the academy, claim that they're from the Shadow Garden, and declared that it's a takeover. Princess Rosie tries to hold them off, but because she couldn't use magic, she never stood a chance. Her sword is broken, and she's injured to the point get inside. But just before they're about to land a finishing Sid jumps in and takes the attack himself. Hope in God. On the ground, Teddy thought that saving a girl while fighting terrorists, this is a really cool thing to do, but Rose, sweet maiden, gets the impression that he loves her, but he's dead. So, there's that. Yeah, the students go to the auditorium and, looking, Sid restarts his heart using magic. Then there's the soldier who you talked about. She invades her room and attempts to take the relic from her. Princess Iris's Crimson Knights help her to get away. Sid, on the other hand, is having a good time killing all these. He also protects Sherry. Sherry then serves the brow, which caused the barrier. Find the bids the eye of the brush. It'll keep absorbing magic until it explodes and takes. Fortunately, the umbrella Cherry was asked to research the eyes control unit, so she starts trying to do something about it. Then said it also helps you get the stuffier wires. Subsequently, that Rex guy from the down there, the men referred to as God Knight. Rex mentions that their men are getting killed left and right, and is it the real Shadow Garden is? His goal is to become a member of the Knight once again, but Sid then kills Rex as well, and guess what? Only one of the Crimson Knight survives. One survives turns out to be News. Thanks. She got hit by shock of emotions. Good God. But thanks to Sid orders to not do anything until Sherry has all figured out new steps, and she learns. I want this. Wow. He is done with the control ballad. It takes off the barrier, which means that they're now free to use magic as much as they want. Sin digs on a Shabbat disguise and tells his girls to water the terrorists. What Princess Iris still believes that the Shadow Gardens now please sell for another plot twist, because the leader of the State Shadow Garden and mastermind behind this attack on the Academy is none other than he's a dumb little father. Levi's principal. God Knight is just a student. His real name, of course, Sid Fine Timber, of Sherry's research, and as sort of snowballs and a Rosalind telling Sid his story. He seems that he used to be a master swordsman who showed great promise, but then an illness nerfed him. Since then he put his faith into the eye. His son is the only way to get back in the water. This is why he ended up with Sherry's mother, who was basically researching. Yeah, but the Mary killed her when she didn't want to continue the research and turn Sherry into us, so the research could go on. However, now that everything is in order and Sherry is combined, the brothers' plan is able to use to get back what you once lost. But who cares? Sid is still a way better towards me anyway. Brisbane realized that this is about how we tarnish the shadows. Sid just kills him, he couldn't care less. She shows up and starts crying because her father was home. Slide. Sid knows that being an anti-criminal to save our people from the truth, and so we choose to not say anything about Rosalind, but for what it's worth, and who is wanted for mass murder, arson, kidnapping, and robbery, is the no. One enemy to the Shadow kingdom embraces this. Gamma later tells Alpha that the remorse of the masses, I'll put my scissors real, redesigned their approach. As for Sherry, she sit there well goes abroad. Something. Once it asks about what she going to study, she replies that it's a secret. Well, give Sid some bad vibes. Next up we have the trip to Number Sin His Ass by Alpha to visit the secret Sydney. Alexia and her sister Iris also plan visiting place. In preparation, they go to one of 6 department stores where it likes you buys a certain kind of underwear. But the entire, did you sing a certain man? I wonder where this is going about anyway. Supposed death. You pretended to miraculously survive. Ho is glad that Sid is, and she wants to be his. She still wanted the impression because he was in love with her, so she ends up hanging along with Sid. During their secret bubble trip around what he'll have to do to get her father's approval for marriage, but this somehow concludes that she's trying to convert into full local religion. Following this, City comes across Baby was using her alternate persona as the author, named Natsume. She's basically published stories that share with her became insane, me successful. We're talking about Cinderella and Star Wars. Sid starts getting excited when Baby passes him a mission, breathing that is coded in ancient language. He's still under the impression that this is roleplay. Roses can be confused. She wonders. It is obsessed with things like history and... Meanwhile, there is a cultist who invades the church of Beatrix, the Archbishop, Absolute, there and takes out one of the perpetrators. But the murderer himself escapes. Is that he'll be moving as on. I record. Moving on, the Beatrix trial takes place. The no one is worthy enough for the spirit of the heroes to manifest and build them. The man was looking ultimately interesting at this point. I'm in nowhere. Seed is announced as the next challenger. As it turns out, Rose registered him and her the show as father. This man is truly worthy of being her husband. Sid didn't want to give anything, so instead of going with this real identity, he crashes the event, the sky's the shadow, and for once a spirit does manifest. Ignore the challenge. Much to surprise, it's Aurora, the strongest, and history, the acting archbishop name. Monkey to go up against her, considering how the world then they chaos. But Alexia sees the situation differently. She deduces that if Sheldon's presence was enough to manifest Aurora. 1. Right now, not to mention the world was hardly a challenge. Casually defeats. All this point. The Shadow Girls are once again impressed by Leader, also because of Shannon's power. The barrier around the event. Or Shannon tries to ignore the door, but when it starts following him, he takes the plunge, and Gazette. Oh, just the Zeanders, another door opens the arena. This gives Nelson nightmares and he asks the guards. I get rid of everyone but the Shadow Girls appear. Fellow like Sandros the not try anything funny into. Epsilon captures Nelson and at this point the like T and Rose all along. They fall right in front of Alpha. And the others like to stay the cheap trips and fell on the gate. The Alpha doesn't care. She just starts telling the story. She explains that this is where the hero Oliver Sever Diablos is left more 1,000 years ago. And she happens to be the descendant of the hero. Sid, on the other hand, comes across Aurora. It seems she's been trapped here for quite a while. In a while, I mean 1,000 years. One said free from the confinement. She said state that this sanctuary is a prison that serves as the storage for the memories of past heroes, and this is where things chaotic, like Savannah, destroying the sanctuary. The other legends will lose their memories. But what is in those memories? That's the question. They all pass through and begin to gain a perspective on what's been going on throughout the centuries. I told you. Wordy committee experiments on orphanage. No lost. Most of these girls died, but some became heroes. Like this awesome coral, to be demonic pills we've seen at previous points in the story. They were formed using Gallo's arm. Usually produces these pills once every year, and also spit down 12 beads that are capable of granting limited immortality to the top leaders of the cult. Of the wise, of the ground. Now Nelson was buzzing as a replacement archbishop turn. 1,000 years ago, and since the secret is out, he goes, Arbo. Multiverse of memories, and starts by previously using copies of himself, but Nelson wasn't enough to stop them. All the girls in shadow gardening, or finger, who were experimented upon, puts insured them of the side effects. They still have their strength and then they're gonna use it on Nelson. And just the very core of this, Delta displays that she's strong enough to kill hundreds of Nelsons, with how even you bad chicks. She's a preserver. For the magic sword that was also there. The catch is that you need to be a descendant of the hero to withdraw, which, Sid. The Shadow Girls, on the other hand, so were. This thank you for together with the likes and Rose. Looks like Epsilon figured out how everything works. After going to the holes research, Nelson is confused, especially since you just summoned all of her to fight for Anne. So he shifts his attention to Sid and makes Oliver fight him. That is once again disappointed because what wasn't really Oliver, but a soulless imitation of this. Aurora comments that shall protect him as a thank you for all the fun she's recently had. But this only furthers since disappointment, because it's impossible from the lures to begin with. He relaxes, so what all of her wins and chosen that one of his eyes has changed basically allows Oliver to stop. Sure that be it his primary organs. And now that Oliver was in close range, the killer using his jaw said it wasn't done yet though. He figured out one of the secrets of the sanctuary. How to sword magic, and yes, the reason he had trouble with Oliver is because he couldn't use magic. But by concentrating his magic within his eye, he can use it again. Syndistrative magic to unleash an atomic bomb, which reduces Nelson and the sanctuary to nothing. Yeah, reduced to atoms. Aurora kisses him in the final moments and expresses her hope that, and not just her memories, following these events, has been more confused than they've ever been. They come to the conclusion that they'll need their own organization, which can go up against wolves, the cult, and the Shadow Garden. The only problem is that Natsume has been with them. Friendly reminder that she's actually they, disguised as a published author. Natsume agrees that she's willing to join them, creating this secret organization. Very clever. She can always spy on them, and they're ready for another plot twist when Alpha goes through the archives of the sanctuary. She discovers that the true identity of the Deep, is none other. Roar. Hello. Gordon ends up buying pretty much the entire city under the presence. They will open shopping centers, but the goal is to gain access to the oil under the city. How American of them. Alexi and her sister Iris come to the conclusion of the cult and the church are involved with each other, but they like the political power to do anything about it, and so I was besides the participating and upcoming tournament, the Ocean Festival. She'll win and gain some political power. Rose, on the other hand, is puzzled because apparently she's in set by the demonic wand. Now the Bushan Festival is a big deal. Warriors from all over the world show up. Send it down for each number. Citizen trees and that will be cool if you participate. You tweak it first, but then you'll defeat everyone. We need another disguise to pull it off. And so we ask Scammer the users, my makeup, and his face. It becomes man, a knight who likes both skill and status. And exceptional knight named Anne. Rose notices him participating. She gives him sincere advice that he better not participate. And Quinton shows up. Teach him a lesson before the festival even begins. Man ends up provoking Quinton by saying that he's stronger than him. This enrages Quentin, and he starts beating up said monster. Rose couldn't help but observe regardless of the attack scene, and still hasn't suffered any injuries. Sid then talks the skill about who win, and this is where Scale reveals two warriors were favored happily to win the whole thing. There are Iris, Rose, Quentin, and a Dark Knight, whose name is unknown. Later in the day he bumps Rose. Rose talks about how she became friends with Alexia, not too many, but then also mentions our father has already selected someone as her fiancé. The man's name is Urbass Hat. And looks like she'll have to give up on the sword too. Sid was still unaware this lady wants him to be. She just casually tells her to follow her heart to what would make her happy. The torment begins. Mundane Mayor. Everyone is disappointed because the look as though the opponent just cracked, but Evros saw the monkey. I simply moved way too fast for the naked I'd see. Going back to the advice. Wow, he just stabs Provosk in the balls. There's gonna be consequences because of what happened. She's the one. She is ready to protect her friend. Asima calms her down. However, because she's already frozen whereabouts. Seed then comes across an elf named Beatrix who looks just like Alpha. Back to the tournament. Sit back to Warning Golden. Launches closely, especially Quinton and Anna Rose. They want to know how mundane men will handle this one. Surely reality is disappointing because all it takes is a sneeze to knock gold the. Starting with per base. Or, she sees that the man wasn't injured at all. Back at the tournament. Stunning upset because Monday Man has the. He has defeated Quentin and is going to fight in a row in his next match. A Rose, being a sweet, tries to assert dominance for the match, but is taking it back when she realizes that Man has been wearing armor that weighs over a ton. And then they can move just fine. And then he moves too fast for people to follow. But a hard match within Rose. Since sister comes to visit him, but he shakes her off by saying that he will also hunt for Rose because the reward is huge. In actuality, he admires Rose's resolve to risk everything for the sake of her happiness. Moving on, Sydney hears someone playing piano. It's Epsilon. Feels that she is posing as a pianist to develop connections throughout the kingdom, but here Natsume, on the other hand, are under the impression that the recent Herb is a cultist, is trying to brainwash the king. By the way, Rose's father's came. Speaking of Rose, she's at her woods end by this boy. The demonic blood is messing up, and she doesn't want more political unrest, so she decides to dress surrender. But then, Shadow shows up In the underground, he plays some piano, cares of the demonic blood, and also gives her some powers. It disappears. Just like that. This gives her newfound determination. Survived when they called this come after her. She heals them all. She also decides that instead of involving, like here not to me, she'd rather be alone. My neighbor's turns on that day. He realizes that his sister has been waiting for this entire time. She punishes her little brother. And then mentions how she's going to be participating in Brother's Stand. And so, she wants him to watch her fight. Sid obliges, and when the time comes he sits next to Iris. Receiving. Talk about the Dark Knight, whose real identity is Beatrice. How this works, it realizes that she's actually only Alpha's blonde. And I wondered, come, the mundane man to fight, and Rose. Sid excuses himself and shows up in the arena. As much, Mannerb shows up and sits on his seat. Iris is disgusting but he goes on to say that Rose will eventually return and as for the fight and try her best, the match Monday men's. But it was simply impossible. She loses, which means Iris next. That was my loss, but then she still has much. Just sit is like to work for her country. Enemies and loyal to flag her country, so he refuses. All this time, Sid is getting excited. That how he's going to win the whole disguised as mundane rabbit. Never show the disguise of the world ever again. The mundane man will forever remain legend. But I only forgot to watch Claire's match, so there's that. Who plays next match? Sit next to Iris and Beatrix. Justified. Subsequently, we see the perfect living daylights and prey on this king. He thinks that Rose will eventually come to save. Will marry her. She's done with the real. And he also seeks to kill like his father, King of the Guard. The idea is the cause of war. And okay, going back to the tournament again, but it was a present to see your victory this time either. Instead, he goes down there disguised as monster to find Iris. Iris braces herself, but her instincts scream at her, telling her that she simply die. One shots her. I'm beginning to wonder at the just one punch disguise. Simultaneously, Rose and bait the VIP. Hello Garden. She kills her father, the king, and the man suffering this messes up the curb. Rose then tries to kill herself to make amends. Damon stops her. He kills her men and Henley reveals that he was the eminent in shadow of a Rose recall a memory from the past. On a young city used the kill bandits at night. This one time he saved her, and in turn also inspired her to pick up the sword. Rose realizes that it's too worthy for her to die. She escapes for the day. This leaves us with Matrix and Shadow. Patrick knows the Shadows. They wanted terrorists as well as their next opponents. She prepares herself to fight him right there. And then I wish to new beings. That'll be a trick. And Shadow's obviously too much for her. Then there's Alpha. She finds Rose and asks her to become a member of the Shadow Guard. And Rose goes home. Going back to the Battle of Shadow Bulls was the strike of the sack, which will instantly vaporize the entire city. Seeing this, Iris and Beatrix are too petrified. Know what they should do next. But Shadow just disappears together with the attack before anyone can. This sleeps a bad taste in Princess Iris' mouth. All the cheeks get some sad and sentimental because she wasn't able to find her niece. Again, the news of Shadow breaks the entire world. Sherry hears about it. May form when it expresses your desire to one day. The members of the Shadow Guard. I knew there are activities on the best organization on the world. I'll put things Rose to a super place into the mountains of Branson's childhood village. There she shows Rose the ancient kingdom of Alexandria, but just found the base of operations, the Shadow Garden. Here in Shadow Garden is given a new label as the Soldier No. 666 to start again from ground zero, and a lust for the man or the shadow. How badass the recent role-playing events have been. He's thankful that everyone is flying along. Apparently Easter was no good. That all what happened, dude. The shit out. Is that all of it? Real. We see him. Once again. Money leaves. A soul black feather falls on the keyboard. That is right, folks. Eminence in Shadow. Just begin. And that's the end of the video. Please subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this. See you at the next one.